Good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to be live on Facebook as well. So hang tight with us for one moment. We're going to keep it to a quick 30 today because we've got other things to do as well as podcast. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. It is a soggy Monday morning in Atlanta, Georgia today. Super Bowl is over. The Chiefs have won again. In the age of parity, it seems like only two teams have won the Super Bowl in the last 20 years. So, Nick, how are you doing, my friend?
Feeling rather futile, I think is the word. I mean, Chiefs, this is probably, at least on offense, probably one of the worst Kansas City teams we've seen in the Patrick Mahomes era, and it didn't matter in the end. And God, not only did they win, but the gauntlet they went through to get there, they beat the Miami Dolphins in negative 50,000 degrees with the speed demons that they have. They went on the road and they beat Josh Allen. They went on the road and they beat the Ravens. They beat the preseason Super Bowl favorites, I believe. If it wasn't Kansas City, it was the 49ers. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes is the bleeping boogeyman at this point. I'm I'm exhausted. I'm disappointed. And the other thing that's really a bummer too is that, God, they had all the turnover luck yesterday. The muffed punt. I think they fell on 6 of 7 fumbles in the game too. I mean, the 49ers just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And it's kind of like, you're not really a horror movie fan, are you, Scott? I
No,
feel
I'm
like
not.
Jeepers Creepers in the movie where there's a scene where the chick runs over the monster and he's like, "Oh, do you think he's dead?" And she's like, "They're never dead." And she proceeds to back over him, run over him about 6 or 7 times. And that's essentially where I'm feeling about with Patrick Mahomes. Not really. I'm not going to don't assault anyone, folks. But
I
it's
am
it's
like a
uh, it's unbelievable.
fantasy horror though. So, I always say a steak in holy water for teams like
Okay.
this.
Yeah,
So,
it's
well,
unbelievable.
I'm Scott Kennedy. And like I said, this is the Falcons podcast. And we go live every Monday, Wednesday, and usually Friday. We've taken a lot of Fridays off here lately, Nick,
Right.
because when you're not here, I don't feel like going. And I've been fighting this head cold here the last week or so. But we go live on Mondays because we like to say hello to the chat and have y'all in here with us. YouTube.com/Scott Kennedy. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Pods later, you can always join us live or leave a comment. If you are listening on Apple Pods, leave us a review. That's always nice as well. But John Harrell says, good morning, Nick and Scott and Falcons family. Anybody would be better than Ritter. I titled the show around Ian Rapoport and Garofalo and Pelissero's rundown of the quarterback situation across the NFL. And they talk about the idea that there's a lot of NFL people that think Justin Fields in Atlanta is a good fit and that Desmond Ritter could then be traded, which is something that we have talked about a lot. Desmond Ritter would be in Atlanta unless he is traded away. You're not going to cut him. And I actually had someone DM me says, why would you even want him as a backup at this point? I'm like, because backup quarterbacks for the most part don't really matter. They matter more. You know what I mean, though? Like if you're to your backup quarterback, you're in trouble. Nobody is like, oh yeah, we're good. We're too deep at quarterback. It's more about the system and the team around you at that point. And he's fine as a backup, which means that like I don't really want him to play. And if he ends up progressing into something more, great. I don't mind a young backup with some experience. Dave comes in, he says, good morning, Scott and Nick. I want a franchise quarterback. I want one of those guys or something very close to it. Trading for or drafting for mediocre quarterbacks is not going to get it done for me any longer. So you've got to, Nick, I'm of the opinion if you were to trade for Justin Fields, you draft a quarterback anyway. If it's anybody older than Fields, you definitely draft a quarterback. If you go Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. With Fields, maybe you give it 1 year. Maybe you give it a shot. You don't take one this year. Maybe you throw in a Spencer Rattler or a Joe Milton.
I feel like Justin Fields is probably your top 100 shot draft pick if you do take a quarterback like this season. Unless you absolutely love a guy. I mean, you're always hunting. I come from the Ron Wolf school of thought that you should be, even if you have the guy, you're still looking because quarterbacks are that valuable. Uh-oh. I'm frozen. Okay, I'm good. No, so the quarterbacks are that valuable. So even if you have the guy, you're hunting still. So yeah, it's definitely something to look for as far as trading for or drafting mediocre quarterbacks. I'm with you as far as the trading for it feels like futile in the end, but drafting mediocre, I mean, you just don't know, right? Like that's the thing with the draft, right? Mahomes fell to 10th overall. Obviously, wouldn't have happened if we knew he was going to be that. You had Josh Allen was the third quarterback in his draft class. It's just you never know with the draft.
How about the guy that started the quarterback yesterday in the Super Bowl? Brock Purdy. Now, I'm not saying, excuse me, I'm not saying wait until the 7th round to get your quarterback.
Yeah, but you still want to hunt and look for your guy.
But
absolutely,
but get a guy.
Yeah,
get a guy in there. Scared the cat with that clearing of the throat. But hey, I can talk again. But you want to keep hunting, keep trying to get those guys. Red Swarm says, good morning, Scott and Nick in the chat. Priority number 1, let's get our quarterback. Yeah, I think that one's pretty clear. Like I said last week, I thought it was very interesting that Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris didn't make mention of Desmond Ridder at all. It was all about, we're looking to draft, trade, sign, free agency, all of the avenues to get our next quarterback. I thought that was very telling. Michael Rankin, good to see you.
Falcons.
Thanks for coming in.
I want to appreciate Falcons fans because Broncos country a few years ago went down this guy's probably not it, and they hunkered down. And maybe it's because everything had worked out for the Broncos for the most part for a long time. But the Falcons fans understanding that 12 starts from a day 2 quarterback, that wasn't it. That's not enough. Glad you're not. I mean, there are still some Ridder folks in here, but you should be
one less now.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, okay, I get you.
Yeah.
That's definitely, you need to look for a new quarterback. You need to look for an upgrade.
Yeah, and again, if it ends up being Ridder, fine. He's on the roster. He's cheap, but he's not going into, unless something has gone wrong. And there's just no way he goes into camp as the starting quarterback this time. If he earns it, fine. That's a whole different story. Oblivion Empire, good morning. Good morning to you. And actually, I meant to read this one real quick. JM says, as a quarterback who failed at the team they were drafted on ever won a Super Bowl with another, I just can't see Justin Fields bringing a trophy. The recent guy, and the guy that came to mind for me right away, was Matthew Stafford. Now, for those people who just point at a record and say, oh, he didn't get it done, he was 74-90 in Detroit. That's a losing record, So, and again, I see that a lot with Justin Fields. They point to his record, and it's not necessarily the traits. It's not necessarily the talent. It's not that he's 24 years old. It's his record is bad. Okay, well, Matthew Stafford was a number 1 overall pick, and his record was bad in Detroit. Yeah, well, that's Detroit. Yeah, but it was Chicago. Okay, so I can draw some of those parallels with this JM. Now, I was always a huge fan of Matthew Stafford. I can look at Matthew Stafford and say, Matthew Stafford is not the reason this team is losing football games. I don't feel the same way about Justin Fields. I feel like Justin Fields is still potential, not that he is what Matthew Stafford was even 3 to 4 years in his career. So I would say Matthew Stafford on this, JM, but I would have it with a qualifier.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's fair to say that Matthew Stafford failed with the Lions. It's a pretty harsh word considering the situation there. Another one that comes to mind for me, Scott, is, and I think it mimicked, not the players are 1-for-1, but the situations is a little bit more comparable. Drew Brees with the Chargers. The Chargers ended up having the number 1 overall pick. Drew Brees had some flashes there with the Chargers for another number of years, and they end up letting him walk and take Eli Manning, who then turns into Phillip Rivers. I was pretty young when that happened. Maybe I'm mixing up a few of the details there, but that comes to mind for me.
Drew Brees, the idea that Drew Brees, had this birth in New Orleans is not factual.
He was solid, but we had some solid showings from Fields too.
But his last 2 seasons, Drew Brees was 20-11 in San Diego, and
they ended up
made
with
a Pro Bowl.
Overall pick? Yeah,
and made a Pro Bowl.
Okay,
so he was successful in San Diego. They just thought, hey, maybe we can do better. This is, I think there might have been some injury concerns there too at the time, but it was here's a chance to go again. But Drew Brees was successful in San Diego. He started off his first season starting 8-8, and then 2-9, then 11-4, then 9-7, and then he was gone. 27-7 touchdowns in 2004 and made a Pro Bowl. So he was good in San Diego. They just wanted something else. They wanted to reset again.
They had a chance,
and I think there were some injury concerns.
They had the number 1 overall pick too, right? That was Eli Manning turned to Phillip Rivers because Eli said he wouldn't play there. So that's why
I think they got Phillip Rivers, and was LT out of that, LaDainian Tomlinson, or am I mixing up my? My
I
years
was
too.
I was a wee young lad at that point, but that's the Bears have a chance to reset. If Bears didn't have a number 1 pick or I guess top 2 pick, Fields would still be there this season. So it's really more of I believe a matter of circumstance with the Fields being traded. It's perfect alignment of factors. So we got Corey Carter coming in, $4.99, says the coach of the losing record, plus an unsuccessful Fields, and people will be shocked whenever we don't win. Falcon logic. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to win in the league, and that would not be shocking at all. I'd be excited about Raheem Morris from what I've seen and heard so far, but you never know about coaches until you have enough sample size there to see if they're the dude or not. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you got about a 33 winning percentage on both. For if you're in for the win and you're counting on winning percentages, Corey, I get it. There's definitely risks here involved. And again, I think the Atlanta Falcons make the playoffs with Justin Fields as quarterback last year. Doesn't mean he would have been good. Like he's still the guy that you want to build behind for the long term. But I think this was a playoff team with better quarterback play, and I think Justin Fields is a better fit for what Arthur Smith wanted to do. His breakdown and his big play ability, his ability to stretch the field downfield and get the ball to Pitts and Drake London. I think it was a playoff team last year. So that doesn't necessarily mean you would want to. It kind of would have felt like one of those playoff team first round outs. But again, not 7-10. So I get it, Corey. I do, and appreciate the support. Mike Harvey coming in with another super chat. Appreciate y'all. He says, I came in late, but I don't think we're going to get Fields. A veteran, I think, will be a Minshew, Gardner Minshew, when we draft Daniels or May by trading up. Gardner Minshew's in for a raise. When the Falcons signed Taylor Heinicke and the Colts signed Gardner Minshew, I was a little annoyed with the national media saying that this was a really good move by backing Anthony Richardson with a veteran Gardner Minshew, but then not giving the same idea to Taylor Heinicke and the Atlanta Falcons when Heinicke had actually had more success in Washington than Gardner Minshew's had in his career. But Minshew played really well last year. He played well enough last year. He's going to get himself a good raise. Now, what kind of raise? I think he can double his money. He ended up with bonuses and stuff at about $7 million. I think he can get in the 15 to 20, and someone could bring him in as a starter. Shane Steichen rejuvenated his career, but they might give him 20 in Indianapolis. That seems a little rich for a backup.
Yeah, I don't know about the Minshew fit with Robinson here, just because I think you're going to be much more under center West Coast centric, and Minshew was an RPO merchant, air raid style this last season, which, I mean, credit to Shane Steichen, totally changing the style there with Richardson to Minshew. But if you think he can play under center and do those kind of dropbacks and do everything that comes with the more Kyle Shanahan-esque offense, then, I mean, it makes sense. He's one of the lot of quarterbacks who, really, I think the bottom of the quarterback play in today's NFL, Scott, is higher than it's been in a long time. So I would do everything I could to either get the cream of the crop or not pay a lot for the position. So if Minshew can come in and not get paid a lot, that's fine. But would I rather have Minshew for 15 or 20 million a year, Scott, or would I rather have Russell Wilson for vet minimum or Jimmy Garoppolo for vet minimum? I probably would rather have the vet min guy, honestly. It's even if Minshew's slightly better, I think the dollars make a difference there. So that's interesting. As far as the trade up, I'll believe it when I see it. I just can't picture the Commanders or the Patriots trading off of 1, 2, or 3. With you guys sitting there at 8 with all the excess day 2 capital you have, maybe it makes sense to do a slight trade up and get one of those guys if they do fall, even if they are, if you can get up to 3. But it's going to be a costly proposition, no doubt, to do so.
This is something I've said from the very beginning, and now this is being said by people who are more important than me, with Garofalo, Ian Rapoport, and Tom Pelissero on NFL.com. And it had to do with this. There's an article on there about assessing quarterback market in 2024. We talk about the Raiders and said Antonio Pierce actually recruited Jaden Daniels to Arizona State. It's no secret that Pierce has a relationship with Jaden Daniels, whom he recruited to Arizona State, could be interested in a reunion. But trading up is easier said than done, especially when the teams drafting 1, 2, 3 all have an urgent quarterback need. That's the problem. It's like, I saw someone is like, oh, well, we could they're talking about there was, I think it was Kevin Knight of Falcoholic said, the real competition would probably be the Giants. If there was trading, I said the real competition is the Bears, the Commanders, and the Patriots. Because you don't have what they want. And what do they want? They want a quarterback. So you can't trade into those spots. So it could happen, but right now it seems really, really hard. In order to trade up, Mike, you got to find someone to trade down, and all three of those teams want quarterbacks too. So it would be really, really expensive, which isn't as bad. This Falcons team's in a good spot to make that move for Lamar Jackson right now. If he was available, I'd give up 2 firsts and a big contract for Lamar Jackson with this team. Now that you've put some money into free agency and your offense is basically set, but you couldn't do that last year before free agency, before you spent all that money. So I just think it's going to be really, really hard to trade up. You pray, if for some reason it goes 1, 2, 3, and Marvin Harrison is gone, then the Cardinals are open for business at 4.
Mm.
Then they're going to get a haul at 4. But it's going to be the neighborhood of those 3 first-round picks that San Francisco gave up just to get somebody on the phone.
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievably expensive, and we'll see how it plays out. I mean, a few days ago in the NFL Super Bowl media, it was J.J. McCarthy Day. I don't know if you were following that. Happy J.J. McCarthy Day to those who observe, and I think he's actually a pretty good fit for the Shanahan/McVay West Coast offense in the end, but he's a hard evaluation. I don't know if I'd be trading up, but he's one where if you love him, I know the Chargers are putting out smoke signals. Please come up to 5. God, please come up to 5. The Chargers want to move down. So maybe that's it. I wouldn't advocate for that, but we're not dealing with all the pieces of information, especially the quarterback evaluation, Scott. So I don't know, but you guys are certainly hunting and you are in a position to make a move. Maybe it makes sense to get Fields in the end and get the best defensive player in the draft at 8. But quarterback is the alpha and omega for this team this offseason.
Justin Fields and Dallas Turner or J.J. McCarthy.
I mean, if McCarthy hits, the answer is McCarthy, of course. But you never know. So it's I probably leans Fields and Turner just because I'm really having a hard time buying that in on McCarthy. But he is a talented young quarterback. So I don't know how the intangibles line up. How does he work the whiteboard? How does the throwing sessions go? I mean, if he was, I know there was, I don't know who it was down at the Senior Bowl, but they said if he was in that Joe Burrow, air raid wide offense, he'd be putting up Joe Burrow numbers, that Joe Burrow LSU. Right. But I mean, God, you didn't see it. That's counterfactual, right? That's not the reality that we saw. We saw the very ball control, under center Michigan offense. Now, I will give him this. It's not the Bo Nix offense where it's RPO screen for behind the line of scrimmage for 80% of his throws. Every single one of J.J. McCarthy's throws have no fat on them. They are NFL translatable, which is valuable. You watch a full game of Bo Nix, you're like, man, this doesn't translate. This doesn't translate. This doesn't translate. Oh, there's one. Okay. But man, it is a hard spot to be, no doubt, but at least you are in a spot where you can be aggressive. Those extra day 3 picks can happen. I know Justin says JJ is trash. He's not trash. He's going to go early. I don't know if I'm not the person who would advocate for him that high, but I appreciate the comment, Dustin. Just to keep an open mind because he's moving up, man.
I don't think there's a quarterback that anybody's going to agree on after the first 3. And it's like most people will agree on. I think it's going to be split after the first 3. No matter who comes in, there's going to be naysayers on it, whether it's Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, anonymous reviewer, Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler, Michael Penix. There's going to be naysayers on all of it. That's the reality of drafting at 8, y'all. That's what it is. So get used to it. There's gonna be a lot of you that don't like whatever the Falcons do at quarterback, just flat out, because you're sitting at 8. An honest reviewer says, I'd like to see Ritter work with Russell Wilson for 2 years. He beat many young playoff quarterbacks. Grab a franchise left tackle in the first, get a third quarterback with the 2nd round pick. I'm okay with Russell Wilson coming in. And then I would probably want to go, unless Jaden Daniels falls, and then I'm going to draft Jaden Daniels and have Russell Wilson too, and I might say goodbye to Russell Wilson. You never know. For 1.5, I'd probably keep him. But Ritter's out of contract. He's got 2 years left on his contract. So that's one of the things to think of. If he's a backup for 2 years and he might want to move on. But I'm okay with seeing Russell Wilson in Atlanta as if he's going to be as your Taylor Heinicke. So that's who you're replacing. Ritter is kind of out of the picture for me right now. He is a backup. We'll see. But as your Taylor Heinicke, as possibly a starter, nothing guaranteed. Hardly even any money guaranteed. He'd be 1-5, and if he comes in and he plays well and he's a starter, great. But let's bring in some guys and have an open competition. Nothing handed to anybody right now. And I would draft another quarterback too, an honest reviewer. I agree with you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. I thought it was interesting. He said take a left tackle there. I think that a lot is on the table for you guys. I don't know if tackle is in the cards at 8 overall. I'm feeling best defensive player on the board, or quarterback, or offensive weapon. I think that's still very much on the table. I think that Odunze and Neighbors are special enough talents that I would be interested in. Heck, maybe you have a chance to trade back one spot with the Bears, who seem if the pass catchers come off the board for the Bears, they're kind of in no man's land there. So maybe you can flip back 8 to 9 and get an extra day 2 pick, the future pick, and take the best cornerback, edge rusher guy available, which is certainly a viable path forward for the Falcons, if not quarterback.
I'm good with Jake Matthews again. He's still just 32 and playing at a good level. I'm okay with Jake Matthews there. Mm-hmm. I think you can get 3 more years out of Jake Matthews. So I wouldn't necessarily address the left tackle position. I'm in the market for maybe a day 2 offensive tackle period and see where that goes, and then have some competition that isn't Jalen Mayfield. I know he's gone. But a better competition for Caleb McGary. See if he regresses, because you're not running that power offense right now, and you're going to need better pass protection than you really think we can count on for Caleb McGary. That's something we haven't really talked about, Nick, is how this change affects the offensive line. I feel pretty good about 4 of them. Now I'm a little worried about Caleb McGary at right tackle, Nick.
Yeah, you're probably not going to protect him as much. You still we saw the 49ers yesterday with a pretty poor offensive line, honestly, Scott, outside of Trent Williams.
Who had
some
rough
game.
Good
enough quarterback. Yeah, Karlaftis, my guy, if you remember. God, he was on him. But definitely McGary is an interesting one long term. I just feel like it's probably a little early. Maybe you talk day 2 for that as well. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's more developmental, bringing a swing, but it is certainly an option. I just don't know if, does Joe Alt, Olufashano, Talise Fuaga really move the needle that much for you guys? I feel like that's probably a slot further down for you guys.
I tell you, the guy, I won't say he's in the Spencer Brown, Abraham Lucas mold, but one of my guys this year from a smaller school is Patrick Paul. I'm becoming a big fan of Patrick Paul. 6'7", 333 pounds, light feet, strong hands, 36+ inch arms. Houston Cougars. He looks like a first-round guy to me. So he was playing left tackle, and they moved Tyler Guyton over to right tackle. I don't know if Tyler Guyton played there the whole time, but at the Senior Bowl, it was Patrick Paul playing left tackle. So if he's there in the second round, I'd be pretty happy taking Patrick Paul also for a long-term guy as well.
Yeah, we got Dave coming in, $5 super chat. God bless you, Dave. Thank you so much. Appreciate the shout out on this Monday morning as we Scott and I start to wrap it up here, because I got to get on the baby appointment again this morning. So go. It's never a dull moment now.
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes left, and then we're gonna go. I see Barbara Ridley over on Facebook says if you want to win, move up and get Daniels. Yeah, Barbara. The question is, and I'm going to get into Gary Palmer here too, and I see some other stuff in here about the Patriots. You want to move up and get Daniels. I just don't think you can. I just do not think you're going to be able to get up and go get Daniels, because the 3 guys need quarterbacks. And Gary comes in. Appreciate you, Gary. It's good to see you. He's talking about this. He says, good morning. Does the Pats saying they're not drafting a quarterback and sticking with Mac Jones have any weight? No, it doesn't. And I don't think the Pats are saying that. Now, there's talks about, okay, we might do this, we might do that. You leak that out. Just get it out there. That's just saying, hey, give us your best offer. We'll listen. You always listen. You always pick up the phone. And if somebody wants to do something crazy that you absolutely cannot say no to, then okay. But the Patriots aren't sticking with Mac Jones. That's I'll be a little surprised if he's even on the roster next year. So they're in the market for a quarterback. And going back to this article on NFL.com talking about the Raiders trying to trade up for Jaden Daniels. Trading up is easier said than done, especially when the teams drafting 1, 2, 3 all have an urgent QB need. An urgent QB need. Patriots would be insane. You'd have to make them crazy. You'd have to do something crazy for them to not go quarterback when there's a good quarterback available at 3, Nick.
I think with how particular coaches are with their schemes and everything, that it's possible that the Patriots like a JJ McCarthy or a Bo Nix more than Jaden Daniels when they're on the clock, and they would rather trade back and get the excess draft capital, manipulate the board, and then go get that guy who they might have ranked higher. Coming again out of the Senior Bowl, some teams don't like Jaden Daniels, some teams don't like Drake May. Pretty much consensus. Everybody's interested in Caleb Williams, but I think that there's not as those teams need quarterback, but which quarterbacks do they like in the end? How do they slot those quarterbacks? The media is going to have the tier difference between Drake May and Jaden Daniels, but I can tell you, talking with people that were, boots on the ground and people who are more connected than I am, again, it's hearsay, so take what you want. It's Lion season. No doubt it's already begun. But the order of the consensus of the picks are the quarterbacks is not for sure, and it's going to vary by team. So let's say the Patriots love Drake May. He goes off at 2. We don't want Jaden Daniels. We want Bo Nix. We want JJ McCarthy instead. They're going to be shopping that pick to somebody who wants it. So I think it's very possible they go 1, 2, 3. But again, not every single team is going to want every single quarterback.
Yeah. But I don't see Mac Jones as a starter in New England next year. So let's put that one out there. Maybe never say never, but that would be surprising to me. Justin Dante Jenkins over on Facebook, he says, did you hear the trade offer is Ritter and the number 8 pick for Fields? If so, I think that's a good deal. I don't. I think that's too high. Unless you're, a Chicago fan who happened to come in, then I think it's a great deal for you. But I don't think, I think that's too high I'd go a second rounder, especially if you have 2 of them. But I'd go a second rounder for Fields and, maybe even a conditional. Okay, if he plays into this, but I wouldn't go any higher than that. That's where I would draw my limit on that one. Greg Custom Kicks, and this is probably going to wrap us up today. He says, "Good morning, guys. I'm making coffee and thinking about the aftermath of all who bet against Pat Mahomes. I didn't, not this time. I was done. I picked against him in Buffalo. I picked him against him in Baltimore. I'm done. So I'm not picking him against him again. Going to be interesting to see what Chicago does with 1-9. Yep. They're for the second year in a row, they're the most intriguing team in the NFL draft going into the offseason. So it looks like March 17th is one of the big dates, Nick, with Russell Wilson. I saw another one, I think it was with Trubisky. That's like the new league year is March 17th. So all of the moves with some of these guys that have roster bonuses have to be done on March 17th. So then we might start seeing some of those dominoes fall. Now, wherever Russell Wilson ends up, I don't think that stops a team from drafting a quarterback anyway. So if the Falcons sign Russell Wilson, they can still go quarterback at 8. They can still go quarterback later in the draft. But that should be the first of the big dominoes to fall coming up.
Yeah, and I think we can also potentially cross off the Steelers with their quarterback spot with Arthur Smith heading there. It sounds like it's going to be a Ryan Tannehill reunion with Arthur Smith out there in Pittsburgh this time around. So maybe that's one off the board there to follow as well. I know that there was some Justin Fields and Russell Wilson flirtation potentially there, a connection, but probably will be Tannehill in the end. Just makes sense. Guys bringing in who they know. But we'll see. And I got to say, Falcons fans, not all doom and gloom. You're in a pretty good spot still overall. I mean, the NFC South is still very up for grabs. You have the extra day 2 capital this year, and you're sitting there at 8 overall. Out of all the teams that sound like they're going to be aggressively hunting, you're the only one that keeps a team that's trading back in the top 8, where you can still get a difference maker. I mean, I think you're not probably going to get that guy at 12. You're not going to get him at 11. I think 8 is a big bargaining chip. I mean, God, Scott, what would it take for the Broncos to get from 12 to 8? Another first-round pick? I mean,
2 first-round picks, Pat Surtain. Oh, to get to 8? I'm sorry.
The difference between 8 and 12 is probably
Another first-round pick.
Probably almost an additional first-round pick.
Yeah.
Maybe a 2 and a 3. But you're not in a bad spot if any of the quarterbacks become available. So take that and I guess be a little bit happy about that. And JB says, do we have extra day 2 capital? You do. We're still waiting to see if it's a 3rd or 2nd round pick. But you're at least getting a 3rd for that Calvin Ridley trade. If he re-signs with the Jags, he's going to be a 2nd. I think they'll probably let him walk to keep that pick at this point, maybe. But considering there's going to be a lot of wide receivers on the market, but who knows? We'll see.
Yep. On that note, we're going to get out of here. We will be back on Wednesday for a full show. This is a full show on Monday. We go 30 minutes on Mondays. We go for an hour 10 on Wednesdays. So appreciate everybody stopping in. Want to say thank you to Corey, to Mike, to Anonymous Reviewer, to Dave, Reviewer, easy for me to say, Gary Leeds Palmer, appreciate you, and Greg, Custom Kicks coming in with the super chats. We appreciate all the support. We are the Falcons Podcast. Make sure you check us out on Apple Pods and Spotify and give us a review if you can. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share to wherever you're watching. You could be on Facebook or YouTube. Any of those likes and shares and subscribes is a big deal for us. This channel has grown a lot because of folks like you, and we want to find more Falcons fans. So on that note, Nick and I are going to hop over to youtube.com/milehighhuddle and probably talk more quarterbacks with the Denver Broncos. They have a need. They don't have the money. They don't have the high draft picks that the Falcons do. So they're kind of waiting to see what Atlanta does before they can do anything. And we're going to go talk about that right now. So on that note, we're going to get out of here. Y'all have a heck of a Monday. Stay dry, everybody out there. And we'll see you on Wednesday.
Peace.